I want to share a story with you about how my account got locked and what happened and how we dealt with that. Because if you know, I have clients, I manage money, and my clients had to deal with my account being locked. So last year, towards the end of the year, around November or so, I got locked out of my account that I have with my clients. I had to explain this to them. Thankfully, I was properly positioned. And I was properly positioned, as we said earlier this week, not for tomorrow, not for the day after that, not for next week, but for a longer period of time. Several weeks, several months. Whatever happened, I was ready for it. And I could adjust, if needed, potentially. But the account got locked, and I explained to them, hey, I've been locked out of the account. It's probably going to be several months till we can get back in. I have to pass this test. I have to register a firm. This all happened because we were okay doing what we were doing because we were doing it for foreign clients. But it was a very complicated situation. It's all been handled now. We are registered and we are compliant. But at the time, that was very much up for debate. Anyways, we were locked out of our account. We couldn't do anything. However, that didn't seem to have affected our performance. We haven't closed a single day up less than 10% this year. I didn't lose a single client. I didn't have any clients take out money because of it, and all was well. Why was that the case? Because we had convictions. We were somewhat longer term. I'm not trying to be lazy. I wasn't lazy then, saying, 5-year time horizon, we're going to be okay. No, I said, hey, we're going to have to go through this process. We're going to have to get registered, but we're very bullish on energy. We're very well positioned in energy. It's going to take some time for this to play out anyways. So we're going to sit here. We actually expected that stocks would come down this year. We're going to sit here. We're going to be okay. If we need to sell stuff, we were allowed to sell. And we're going to relax. And at the end of this, we'll be registered and stocks will be hopefully lower and we'll be able to buy stocks. Right now, I'm kind of doing the same thing. But I'm going to get into that into a second because the past couple days I've made some adjustments, and today, after hearing some additional perspectives, I've made even more adjustments. So, long story short, being patient didn't really hurt us. We still did phenomenally as we expected to do by being patient. If we had been able to trade, the benefit really wouldn't have mattered much because our core would have remained the same. And right now, I'm keeping my core exactly the same despite what I'm about to tell you. And not a whole lot is deviating from what would otherwise be the case if my account were locked. If you hear Warren Buffett talk about this kind of phenomenon, this high-frequency type of phenomenon, he says he would actually think it were better if the stock market were only open once every 6 months. And ultimately, that's what I'm saying. So take this in that kind of context. So as you know, I'm not a big technicals guy. I'm not a technicals expert. I look at them, but there are people who that's all they do. They basically rely entirely on technicals, and they put more weighting on technicals than I do. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to listen to Mark Newton of Fundstrat, and those of you who've been watching the videos for a long time, maybe you've heard me reference him before. You've heard me talk about Tom Lee a bunch. Listen to Mark Newton of Fundstrat, and he went through several stocks and several theses that I just couldn't totally disagree with. If you look at the mega caps, we talked about these mega caps yesterday, none of them are really showing a convincing sign of a breakthrough through any sort of downtrend. Everything is still firmly in a downtrend, reversing when it needs to reverse, bottoming, so to speak, when it needs to bottom. And that hasn't stopped yet. I said, okay, that's one thing, but I can be patient. I can deal with some additional pain. But then he said, well, I think rates might be going up, I said, okay, that's interesting. Let me think about that a little more. So I thought about that a little more. And I just trusted his technical judgment on that. I didn't really see exactly what he was talking about with yields. I'm sure he explained it more. I didn't see it. And I thought about it. And I thought about what the Fed said, okay? It's certainly possible the Fed gets more dovish and they paused tightening earlier, and all these things. But the 10-year is now below 3%, and I don't think it belongs below 3%. TLT, the 20-year long fund, is right at its 50-day moving average. This is technical talk. I'm not the technical expert, but I saw this today. Right at the 50-day moving average, and it hasn't broken the 50-day moving average all this year. In order for it to do so, rates are going to have to keep pushing below 3% 10-year, which I don't think is going to happen. I think 3% is going to be some sort of resistance, and here's why. The Fed is not talking about not getting to 3%. It's like 3% is where they're going. They're locking that in. It's get to 3% and see, can we stop at 3% or do we have to keep going beyond 3%? So 3% 10-year, that doesn't work. This is a little bit of recession, fear, panic. You saw what Mike Ron just said. I think this is a short-term thing, and I think yields are going to reverse right about now. Like any moment now, here we go. What I did was, in the past, beginning of this year, end of last year into this year, before the account got locked, I was very heavily in TBT, which is a short 20-year ETF. It was between a 7 to 9% in terms of stock weighting, and I had an additional 5% in terms of options. So this is something I'm familiar with and was previously very heavily weighted on, but took off a couple weeks, maybe a month or so ago. Decided to go back into that till end of July. That's when Mark Newton said, hey, things might start calming down in July. So gave the month based on what he said, and boom, that's my positioning with TBT with rates. Got some calls on that, TBT. Decided to add some SPY puts, get some downside protection, roughly 1%, nothing too crazy. And we're just gonna ride this out. A lot of the longs are saying I took off some of my more, I guess, not necessarily rate sensitive. I'm keeping a lot of my growth. Before I heard Mark Newton last week, and on Monday and Tuesday this week, I actually sold my CRISPR-related call options, besides Editas, which goes on into August, related around the announcement, Intelia, etc. Made tremendous money on that. And now I'm preparing for one final flush. One kind of, rates are going back up, people panic, and all of this. Because while I think rates aren't going to go below 3%, I don't think they're going to go above 4%. I don't think they're going to get crazy high either. So I think people will see rates come, they'll see the bounce off 3%, they'll get close to 3.5%, people will panic and freak out, and they'll dump, and there will be seller exhaustion. That's a good thing. We want seller exhaustion. And I've got some cash. What I was selling today in terms of actual stock was my gold related and Bitcoin related stuff. Just took that off, raised that cash. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to wait for rates to get closer to 3.5%, and then I'm going to start adding. I've added before. I'm not taking off that stuff. As I said, I've done this before. I dealt with energy pain when things were getting a little crazy, when my account was locked, when Omicron was happening. I feel okay. I'm ready for that. I get it. Maybe if I had a crystal ball and I had 100% conviction and I could just predict exactly what I would do, yeah, maybe I would sell everything and then buy everything a little bit. I'm doing downside protection. I'm doing a decently large cash position, around 6 or 7%. Taking off the short-term gain stuff, the shorter-term option stuff. The stuff I like, I think there's a lot of stuff that has bottomed for the year. I think ARK may have bottomed for the year. May 12th, over a month ago, almost 2 months ago now. Not moving with the S&P 500 on that bottom. That might have bottomed. That might have been it. So I'm not really concerned about a little bit more of a drawdown in stuff I know is naturally volatile. But I think rates aren't going to be below 3%. I just think that's not going to happen. That's my fundamental belief, is that the Fed is going above 3%. And this is a little bit of a recession scare, people buying yields down, and that's not the way it's going to be. It's going to be rates above 3%. So they don't want rates below 3%. People are going to start buying houses again, and we've heard them say specifically that they want houses to come down, okay? That hasn't even begun. The housing market is going to take a bit of a hit. So we're remaining patient, but we're expecting that yields aren't going to stay below 3%, so we're adjusting accordingly. We can't ignore that and not play it. We have to play it. We have to be prepared for that. We're also playing other things. We're playing multiple different strategies here, but we're playing this shorter term strategy right here, right now. It's going to provide us some protection in the short term, and it's going to allow us to take even more advantage of a future situation than we otherwise would. So we're not doing it. We're not going all in on that. Again, we're playing multiple strategies, but that's the video for today. I want to let you know what I'm thinking. I want to let you know what I'm learning, what I'm hearing, and what I think is good analysis. So that's today's video, and until next time, peace out.